How often are you seeing the customer? And that makes a huge difference here. When I moved back to Japan, I had a choice to become a sales leader in one company or individual salesperson in the other. And I knew it was going to be an all different game. Yeah, customers giving us great feedback. I think they're going to buy it. We think they're going to buy it, but no. And we want to eliminate every single pitfall.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the NXL Revenue Podcast. Very excited to be joined today by Ike Tateyama, who is the General Manager of Asana in Japan. Ike, great to have you.
Great to be here.
So you and I met over a year ago in Japan, and I believe it was my business partner Lewis who reached out to you on LinkedIn, and you responded. So thank you very much for that. And we met a couple of times, and I can honestly say that spending time with you gave us so much insight into the Japanese market and specifically enterprise sales, and really helped us with our journey in Japan. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. Let's just start with a bit about your background. You've obviously worked across both the US and Japan, which is quite rare. You're based in Japan now. Just give us a sense of kind of how you got here and your journey so far.
Sure. I started working at the subsidiaries of Japanese companies in the US. I worked at the Mitsubishi Electric and then Furukawa Electric, both combined maybe 12 years in the US. Started out as a salesperson and in marketing. Then I became a sales leader at the Furukawa Electric, and I spent 7 years there before I moved back to Japan. When I moved back to Japan, Cisco asked me to join them. So I joined Cisco and spent 14 years there. And I got really interested in the subscription business. So I started customer success team at Cisco from ground up, and spent 2 years there. Then I had the chance to move to SaaS world, where I joined DocuSign. Now I'm at Asana.
Nice. And what was it that made you kind of move from the States back to Japan? Was there something that was kind of pulling you back to the Japanese market? Was it just for work specifically?
No, it wasn't about work. I lived in the US for 18 years. I went there initially to study. I graduated from high school there, went to university. I didn't plan to stay there, but I liked it so much that I ended up staying for 18 years, right? And my parents were getting old, so I thought maybe it's time to move back. It was more of a personal reason than professional reason that I moved back.
Nice. I remember when we spoke a year or so ago, you talked about wanting to use some of the learnings that you had in the States and bring that back to your home country, and because as I said, it's quite rare to have that. What would you say are the fundamental differences between selling enterprise software in Japan versus let's say the US, where you had that background?
Sure. Now that I think about this, I see more similarity than differences between the US and Japan. But I do believe I got shocked because, first of all, customers don't make a decision quickly. Usually takes time. Usually decisions are not made by one person. It's made in the groups, and they have a series of approval process. It's called Ringi. To me, it took forever, to get it approved. And winning multiple, buyer decisions was the hardest part for me. And a sales cycle seemed, so much longer than when I was in the US. But one great thing was once they made a purchasing decision, they really switched to another solution, meaning you have a customer for a long time.
Interesting. So the cost to acquire the customer is higher and obviously longer, but once you have that customer, their lifetime value is much greater.
Far greater, yes.
Yeah. What do you think that drives that sort of? Because we've talked about the ring. If anyone who doesn't know the Ringi system, maybe you can just explain that in a little bit more detail. Like, what does that actually entail? Or what does that look like in practice?
Yes. So it's more of a formality actually, but each partisan decision, it depends on the company. Uh,
Yeah.
they have from let's say 100K or above, uh, they have to go through the process. Who owns the budget? Depending on their rank in the company, they have a limitation of what they can approve. And
Hmm.
I think I don't think it's a difference between US and Japan. It's same thing.
Yeah.
What's really different is that decision is rarely made by one person. Although
Mm.
ultimate approval is one person, that approval needs to have collective agreements from various stakeholders. They all need to agree. So they usually have meetings. Okay,
Hmm.
are you going to approve this budget? But
Mm.
in many cases, they don't know what the software is for. So
Yeah.
they have to write a proposal to get approval. So
Got it.
a lot of times, salesperson's job is to help customer write that proposal together.
Yes. Yes. That's very interesting. Yeah. In the West, in the UK, we do expect our salespeople to it's this concept of multi-threading. We call it multi-threading, which is that
Yeah,
you speak to a buyer, but then you need to bring other people into the conversation. But it's obviously not as significant as, or not as, let's say, required as it is in Japan. In Japan, it's absolutely mandatory. In the UK, you can have a sales conversation or a sales deal and actually speak to like two people and then potentially even get it off the line. But if you did bring other people into the room, you significantly increase your chances
oh,
of
definitely.
closing that deal, right? So that's something I learned from Japan is like, making it mandatory, because I don't think in the West we do that as much
Mm.
or as rigidly as you do in Japan. But I guess my question for you is, having kind of run some of these deals, um, are you, as the enterprise salesperson, also speaking to all the stakeholders, or are you almost arming your champion to kind of do the ringy process for you, or is it a bit of both?
The most success comes from a salesperson talking to every stakeholder.
Mm,
Um,
interesting.
the champion, yes, they can help us get to that. So in most cases, we ask the champion, who else can we convince? Do we need to
Got it.
convince?
Yes.
So they usually take us to, okay, you have to convince this person, that person, usually three or four different people. And
Yeah.
if you are selling a solution to just one small department, you can only rely on one champion. But
Got it.
it's just the nature of Asana. Asana is used by almost every single business unit in the company. It's
Yes.
not just used by a sales or a finance or legal. So um, eventually, everyone is a potential user of Asana. So
Yes.
it's so important that early on we have a connection to all those different people in the company.
Interesting. So a lot of that is driven through your champion, and the champion helps to kind of open up doors to new conversations, new
Right.
people, new. Yeah, very similar to how we look at it in the UK as well. As like it's all about. We talk about testing your champion. How do you test a champion is actually a champion and not not a coach or whatever
Right.
whatever
Right.
the other terms are, right? And a lot of that is about, do they introduce you to the right people, which I
Right.
find trying to say, is it similar? Do you have any sort of, I mean, just back to the kind of sales cycles and the ringy process? Have you had any sort of or do you tell your salespeople any sort of techniques to use to help speed up the process and the sales cycle? Is there any sort of quick wins you can do, or you can help the audience
Yeah,
with?
I wish there was a quick wins, but as the deal gets bigger and bigger, there are rarely really a quick wins. The
Yes.
only thing that I can tell you is to understand how customers' budget cycle works. For
Mm,
example, usually the budget is executed from the new fiscal year. You have to
okay.
have that in the budget plan in the previous fiscal year.
Okay,
Depends on the
interesting.
company, that limit day is different, due date is different. So AE needs to understand, okay, by when this budget need to be approved to be executed in the next new fiscal year,
Got it.
or
Okay.
who are the stakeholders to make that call. And so, the one thing is understand the budget cycle, and second is get to those different stakeholders as soon as possible. Don't just rely on the single point of contact. Expect that person to sell it for you.
Yes. That is very interesting. And is there so budget alignment, just making sure they understand when the budget is, and then they kind of work towards that, which I think
Right.
is a great technique to make sure they have all the steps in place for that. Do you how often do you get involved in kind of at the end, because obviously you've got a team of reps, you're selling to big Japanese corporations. I always talk about kind of executive alignment being important in sales deals. Is that something that you think can help to speed up or even win the deal? And do you get involved in at a certain point
Sure.
in the deal?
Oh, yes, yes. So I have a sales manager who has account executive, to get help from, and we sort of like take turns. Okay, up to this level, the sales manager goes.
Yes.
It becomes a CXO. For example, I go to the CEO, then I show up. And when you're talking to a CXO, you're not really talking about the functionality of software. You're
Yes.
talking about the vision of how we want to transform their companies. And I get to listen to what CEO and other CXOs are thinking. You know, and that's how we carry the conversation. We're not talking about the software itself. And
Yes.
top-down decisions really works, actually. Top-down decisions is to help what's happening on the ground. So you have to create the excitement on the ground, on the field. And they need to, going back to the Ringi process, they need to get the proposal for approval. Then when the CXOs understand, okay, this is the software that they're talking about, then the approval becomes a lot quicker.
Got it. Yeah. So very sort of outcome focused for the CEO. Is like, what is the impact that this piece of software, this technology is going to have on my business. Actually, one of the things that Lewis and I remember a year ago when we sat down with you, we were very impressed by, and we used this technique in Japan, was you talked about how you would have a team within a corporation using the platform, and
Mhm.
you would kind of track the metrics, and then you would invite the CEOs to then talk about how their team is becoming more productive
Right,
using your technology, which
right.
I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, so, to be honest, CEOs don't really care what kind of a tool they use.
Yeah,
CEO cares, biggest fear of software is making a lot of investment and the people don't actually use it, or
yeah,
not getting enough outcome out of using out of the investment. So when we tell them and show them that the software is actually being used by many employees in the company already, and it's making results, then the decision is a lot easier for them to make.
yes, yeah, exactly. So it's all results focused. But and then so that's the CXO level, and then on the ground level, what I always found interesting about Japan versus the West is the level of due diligence that the teams do, and the attention to detail. How do you, I guess, get around that in a sales process? And is there ever a point where you say to your sales guys or girls, okay, they're asking for too much information here. Like we have to scale it back.
Yeah. So you know now we're talking about the sales process, but what I believe is sales is a team sport. It's not just a salesperson running the show. We have marketing, we have a solution engineer, we have a customer success,
Yeah.
and they all play key roles in it. Now, if a same salesperson keeps asking different questions, the customer would say like, no, you're asking me too many questions. Why do you want to know so much? But we have a multiple touch points in the
Got it.
company,
Yeah.
and customer success has every excuse to ask the right questions, right?
Yes.
Because customer success by design is helping customers to adopt the software,
Yeah.
helping them to use the software. So, as a course of that engagement, customer success is a great source to learn about the customer operations, their
Yeah.
challenges, pain points. Then we get a lot of information through that conversation. Right? Sometimes sales go along with the customer success for their regular meetings,
Yeah.
and in many cases, customer success team can tell salespeople, you know, what they learned.
Yeah. So they're constantly getting touch points from. So the salesperson is constantly discovering based on other stakeholders that are involved in the deal, which is obviously helping them to close the deal. I've also noticed that in Japan is the customer loves to meet more people and see the people behind the team. The more people you introduce them to, the better it is for the deal, is because it's the people behind the company that really makes it.
Right. So one thing they want to understand is your company committed for Japan market? You
Yeah.
know, and more faces we show and more commitment we show, customers feel confident that okay, this is a partner that I can work with for years to come. They don't want to make a buying decision and find out, oh, okay, this software is not going to be available in a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to go
Yeah.
through the painful Ringi process once again. They don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a long term decision making, right? Yeah.
yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, I do find that fascinating. And one of the when I left Japan, and I speak to anyone who is going into Japan, if they ask for advice, I always say to them, my number one advice is like, do not go to Japan if you're not willing to make the investment into a team. If you think you're just going to go there with one salesperson and see how it goes, then just turn back now. Get
Yes.
a flight back home, because people can smell the distrust and the lack of commitment.
No, and they learned the lesson in hard way, meaning they've dealt with so many software companies who come to Japan and they exit after a couple of years.
Yeah.
They've gone through that process too many times, so they are hesitant to make a commitment.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously we've talked a lot about sales, but just briefly, just to touch on customer success, because one thing I did notice in Japan is that, compared to the West, is, customers are really more demanding, which they obviously have a right to be. But they ask a lot of questions. They're constantly in conversations with the customer success manager. I guess, like, do you have to plan for that in the sales process? Expanding that customer success team. Do you see the customer success role as important as the sales role in your organization?
Absolutely. It's not just customer success, but also the technical support team. It's a balance. As you grow your sales team, you have to balance, okay, what kind of a support team you have, what is how many customer success people you have. So because you don't want to lose the customer, you want to make sure that the customer is having the best experience using the software. And oftentimes it's very difficult for salesperson to do this unless there is immediate revenue expected from the account.
Yes.
The salespeople are hunters. They will go after where the money is.
Yeah.
And that's the sad nature of a salesperson, right? And
Yeah.
customer success can fill the gap of making sure you have a constant touch point, and constantly helping customers adopt and grow. So
Yeah.
I see customer success team as important as a sales team for business expansion.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. It's interesting. So the point you made around the salesperson being hunters and the revenue generators is a really good segue to what I want to talk to you about next, which is how you build that high performing sales team, and get your perspective on that, because that is what you've been doing for the last decade or so. And it starts with the hiring of the salespeople, right? And so I'm very interested to know from your perspective, what makes a good hunter. How do you spot for that in the interview process, and what are those qualities?
Yeah. So obviously, depending on what kind of company you are, this is slightly different. But what
Hmm.
consistently worked is this person humble? Meaning, is this person willing to learn something new,
Hmm.
not just relying on the past success? So what I ask in the interview is, have you challenged yourself going to the new environment where almost you almost have to unlearn what you know from the previous success,
Yeah,
and humble enough to start from scratch again. uh,
yeah,
uh, and what the consistent trait that I've found is that salesperson have to have that humbleness, I should
mm,
say, and also a grit. Definitely, it's so easy to get distracted, disappointed, discouraged in the new sales position when you move to a different company.
mm,
And has this person gone through this grit? Is it tough?
yeah,
Has he or she gone through the tough time,
mm,
and survive, and grow from there? That's something that I always look for in my interview.
yes. That's very interesting. And so it's curiosity, it's being humble, the ability to take feedback, I assume. I mean, in Japan, I
Oh
know.
yes, absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
How do you manage that in Japan? Just not to go off on a segue, but feedback is always more challenging when it comes kind of top down. Or I think feedback is like a real sticky point in, in many Japanese organizations, especially sales team, right? Like because there's this concept of indirect feedback, and not having direct communication. How do you manage that in a sales organization?
I think in at least in the software world, whether it's Japanese or non-Japanese,
Mhm.
people are used to direct conversation. People are used to direct feedback. I get
Okay.
direct feedback from the team,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
and I give them direct feedback. What's required in that conversation is how a manager is actually helping them,
Mm,
not just criticizing or uh, blaming, or just giving them a top-down message. Always reach out as, okay, how can I help you?
got it.
You know, um, and I'm so lucky that my manager in my team is doing a great job coaching and
Yeah.
giving a good feedback, and actually improving sales performance.
Yeah, it's like how can I help you in different parts of what are the gaps, and then actually actively offering that help. Yeah, that's absolutely critical. In terms of the hiring point, actually, I'm interested to get your thoughts. Like when you look at hiring hunters or hiring salespeople, do you look at let's say the large organizations, or do you look at maybe people that have come from the startup world and had to grind and face more rejection? What's your approach there? What have you seen work?
Yeah, so I think I will be thinking about that, for rest of my career. What is the best, trait, what I see, since Asana is relatively small compared to the past company that I worked, you know, what seemed to work is people with at least a little bit of experience in the startup or smaller companies, because people coming from large organizations is shocked because we are still in the early stage. We are still trying to formalize our sales process and the support system for sales, and people get distracted. Okay, how come I don't have these support functions? How do I have any role to help me on this? Like in many of the startups, no, we don't have that.
Mm,
Can an AE run with it? So in some AEs came from a large organization who were very successful, but they told me that they struggled in the first year because they
yeah.
just realize, okay, shoot, I don't have this role to help me. I have to do
Yes.
everything myself, you know?
Yeah. I often see that as well. So if you're working, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's many big companies in Japan, but let's say in the US or in the UK, Salesforce.com is a huge organization.
Hmm.
And if you're working for Salesforce, who pretty much have a monopoly in the market, you're going to struggle a little bit potentially. Not everyone, but you're going to struggle a little bit when you come into a smaller organization with, let's say, an inferior product, because you're not used to opening up new logos as much because they have so many existing logos. So I agree with you that like having that sort of startup experience, and being okay with the chaos at times,
Yeah.
it makes
Not,
you
not,
a lot
not,
more dynamic.
not only okay, but you have to enjoy the chaos.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
we are all
yeah.
here because we like this chaotic world, right?
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. It's all about the enjoying the journey, enjoying the chaos.
Oh yeah.
Good. Okay, so then the other point is around, and Japan has this kind of culture of lifetime employment, and underperformers. It's notoriously difficult to, let's say, create that genuinely high performance culture compared to the West, right? In the West, it's quite normal to have an organization where you're getting rid of 10%, the bottom 10% of your sales team every single quarter. That's very standard. It's more standard in the US. I would say Europe is becoming less like that. But Japan, I would say, is on the extreme end of maybe, it's probably harder to have that performance management. That's just my opinion from where I've been there. But maybe you have an opposing view to that, in the
Mm.
software world.
Actually, we operate in Japanese illegal system, right? Meaning, we have the same restrictions, same challenge as any Japanese companies operating here. So
Hmm.
there is no easy answer to that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All I can say is we try to improve the performance of every single seller here.
Hmm.
We try to we spend a lot of time coaching
Yeah.
and you know take actions before it's too late. Meaning, if someone is having a very low performance for quarters and quarters to come, then that person loses self-esteem.
Yeah.
And make sure that you spend enough time in the first 3 to 6 months. The sales manager is with them, every day, helping them, coaching them, to make sure they're at a certain level.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like from what you said, that kind of first line manager or second line manager is really important to the
Oh, it's
overall.
so important.
Yeah. What does that operating rhythm look like for you? Like, when you talk to your managers, what are the non-negotiables you say to them in terms of, let's say, weekly one-to-ones, how they approach one-to-ones? How do you, what have you seen success looks like there?
Not only having the weekly one-to-one, but I don't know if you use Asana as a tool, but we use Asana on everything. Meaning,
Yeah.
we use our own tool to communicate. We
Nice.
assign tasks to each other. We create projects so that that all the sales teams have the project with the managers. They share the topic, industry news on Asana, and they make sure that the action items,
Mm.
of as a salesperson, there are certain things you need to do, right?
Yeah.
You need to build a pipeline. You need to see customers. You need to close this much. Have you built enough pipeline for next quarter, 2 quarters out? So that's all managed on Asana tool, our own
Interesting.
Asana. So um, we
Well,
don't use Asana for forecasting, but pretty much everything else in the sales process
yeah.
is operated by Asana.
Oh, great! So you're pretty much practicing exactly what you preach, which is great because when you talk to customers, you've been there and done it, which is
Right, right.
which is great. Okay, that's really interesting. And then on the compensation is very important. From my experience, having the right sort of compensation package, is key to a high performing sales team. Like I've been in organizations that have had no sales commissions. And I've been in organizations that have sales commissions, and I can tell you that having sales commissions wins every single time in terms of building that high performance culture. What does good look like to you there in terms of like creating a compensation package that really motivates a sales team?
I actually never worked for organization that doesn't pay compensation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I don't know the otherwise, because since I moved back to Japan, I always worked for American companies,
Yes.
Cisco, DocuSign, Asana. So it is natural that we pay that. And it seemed to me like companies are learning from each other for the competitive reason. You know, you lose employees or you win employees, and they usually tell us like, okay, what kind of package, right? I think the HR department in each companies and every company is learning what is the most optimized package look like.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Do you prefer to have sort of give the opportunity for reps to earn more commission, keep it uncapped, or is it sort of like a nice balance between like having a base and a commission? What tends to
Uh,
work
I
better?
can't disclose exactly how we compensate our
Of
employees,
course.
but yeah, uh, what I see as a trend is, I moved back to Japan 20 years ago. Most companies had caps,
Right. Okay. Interesting.
and I rarely see cap on the comp anymore.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's a big shift there. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I think keeping the team motivated with the right package is key. I'm interested
Yes.
to get your perspective on sales methodologies. So obviously, there's a lot of very well known sales methodologies that have come from the US that are
Hmm.
used, everywhere. Maybe some not as well known as in Japan. But is there any sort of particular sales methodology that you like or you use within your team, and how have you adapted it to the Japanese market?
Um, the short answer to that question is no. I don't have any favorite methodology. We use MEDIC,
Yeah,
and and I've used a different methodology before. What's important is, do you actually use it? Are you just
yes,
scratching the surface and feeling it? Okay, this is M. This is E. No, sales doesn't work that way. You really have to go deep in each of them, and we examine that. In one-on-one or focus meeting. So the first line manager is checking each week with each AE for key deals that they own, and I get that update. Like where we are in the sales process, and
yeah,
you know that Medic is actually incorporated into our CRM. So
okay.
for AE to move to next sales stage, they need to have that a certain criteria checked off. And,
Yeah,
so it's we don't really think about, okay, what is the Medic every day, because that's automatically incorporated into CRM.
yes. If there was one, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If there was one letter in Medic that you felt was the most important, and you could just have one of those to get a deal over the line, like what would you
Mm.
say? What would you point towards in your mind? What's important to you?
To me, they're all equally important, because you cannot miss one, to be honest with
Yes,
you, because sometimes it comes back and it bites you if you overlook something. So,
that's true. That's true.
I've learned this hard way many times, that, everything looked great. And you later realize not everything was great, because we overlooked at some point. So
Yes,
I'm very, I expect a lot of details in that. Like, have we done this? Do you need help? Shall I
yes,
go see the customer? Or what makes you think the customer needs to buy now? All those things, like, sales is eliminating, you know, uh, bad news later on. You don't want to
yeah,
find out. You don't want to be surprised later on if when it's too
yes,
late.
yeah.
Eliminating surprise in every step.
Yes.
And
Do you-
I talked about grit and I talked about humbleness, but at the same time, you almost have to be very not timid. You have to be like pessimistic about what customers are telling you. Like don't be too optimistic. Like, oh yeah, customers giving us a great feedback. I think they're gonna buy it. We think they're gonna buy it, but no. And we want to eliminate every single pitfall.
Yeah. My favorite saying when reps come back and they say, yeah, they really like it. The customer really likes it. It's like, that's the,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, but why do they want to buy? What problems are they solving? Have you got a champion? I think all of these things that you say massively de-risk the deal, and that's what a sales methodology is, right? It's almost like a
right.
qualification framework. It's
Yeah,
de-risking the deal, so you as the sales leader can say, hey, this is my forecast for the end of the quarter, and I know it's accurate because I've been through the process with all of my reps, right? So that's
right.
and we'll come on to forecasting in a second because I'm really interested in actually let's go into it now from a forecasting because it links quite nicely, right? Because the quality and the rigor in which you grill your team on medic is it directly translates into the quality of your forecast
Oh yeah.
in my experience. But so is there any advice you have on kind of sales forecasting? Like what's your process that you've seen has actually worked or gets you close?
What really worked is when I actually go see customers and talk to them.
Interesting.
When my sales manager don't just rely on the reports every week. What have
Yes.
you done to help AEs? Have you talked to customers as a manager? Is something that I always question myself. Am I just keep asking questions? AE's job is not to give a report every week in the forecast meeting.
Yeah.
AE's job is to win business, and
Yeah.
we have to help them as much. We have to sell as much as they do. So
Yes.
I make sure that I double check on the status of the customers' decision making, and
Yeah.
my sales manager does the same thing.
Wow. That is that's the type of like just getting into the trenches with your reps. I think is one, it helps you because you obviously have more of an understanding of what's going on and whether deals are going to close, but it also help they love you for it as well because you're basically helping them close business because you're bringing that kind of senior alignment and really going to help them. That's very interesting. I think that's a good lesson for many CROs out there, which is like if you really want just playing back what you said, if you really want an accurate forecast, get involved in the deal. Go and speak to the customer.
Yeah,
It doesn't get any simpler than that, right?
yeah.
That's yeah, it's great. That's good. That's good advice. Cool. And then you talked about pipeline generation earlier, which I'm very interested to hear your
Okay,
perspective on this. Yeah,
okay.
because we come from a world. I think in the UK we're seeing more and more, let's say, reliance on inbound opportunities, leads coming to you, and less of that old school, going out there and hunting and networking. And I think with AI as well, and AI becoming making it so easy to kind of reach out to people and hide behind a laptop, so to speak. That human connection side is missing. So what are your expectations for reps generating their own pipeline, and how do you
Um,
go about holding them accountable?
yeah. First of all, yes, I do expect my AEs to make their own pipeline. Inbound, yes, inbound is there, but you can't always rely on the inbound because it could go up and down, right? And we
Yeah.
have to deliver results consistently. So first of all, outbound is very important, and we have a business development team who's helping AEs, but AEs also need to actively look for new opportunities. And so when we have a forecast meeting, we track obviously the booking forecast, but we have a separate one-on-one. A sales manager would talk to AEs, and they check on the pipeline. How much pipeline is each AE creating? And to achieve that, what is AE doing? For example, like how many meetings this week?
Yeah.
Within the quarter, how many executives have we met? We track all that. We expect
Nice.
every AE to be, not just asking for the results, like how much pipeline did you create, but are we doing the right things? Are we active enough? Meeting executives, calling customers, meeting customers.
Yeah, yeah, great. And so you've got those leading indicators where you're basically looking at the entire funnel, how many meetings they're having. In terms of actually, let's say they don't have a lot of meetings in the diary. What are the types of activities that you're expecting, the reps to do? Is it what works well in Japan? Is it cold calling? Is it going to events? Is it everything? Like what's your general
We
expectation
do
there?
everything. Cold calling,
Everything.
going to
Love it.
events, ask for referrals. We do everything to get that meeting in. And, what's so important here, more so than in Western world, is are we showing up face to face? How
Interesting.
often are you seeing the customer? And that makes a huge difference here. And
Yes.
as a software company, we tend to rely on online meetings with, okay, I get to have 5 to 10 meetings in a day if I do online. But if I do face to face, I can only do 1 or 2 a day. Now,
Yes.
that 1 or 2 meetings are so much more impactful than having the email exchange or having the telephone call or let's say, having online meetings. And I'm
Right.
not completely discounting the effectiveness of online meetings, but make sure out of the meetings that you had in the week, how many was were face to face. That's something that we questioned.
I think that is a great piece of advice for anyone listening who's trying to run a high performing sales team. It's one of the things that I realized when I moved to Japan because I was selling myself as well. Is meeting people face to face is so much more impactful than having an online meeting in terms of
Right.
building a champion. That eye contact. I think it's everything, and I think that's a lesson that actually I believe the West can take from Japan. Because at the moment, I do feel like, especially as you said in the software world, it's really gone down this route of online meetings. And the more online meetings you have in your diary, that's better. But there's nothing like
But
going to visit a customer.
I've learned my sales, in the US back in the 1990s, right? That was my first, career start. Then back then I was taught, go see customers.
Yeah,
Like that's how I grew up, as a salesperson. So
yeah,
it came pretty natural to me, you know,
yes.
and I was always traveling, and to see customers, right? So that's that. What I'm doing right now is something that I've learned 30 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. So just back on the pipeline generation piece and just the general creating the performance. I think when we speak to CROs, I think some of the challenges that we hear is just like really setting that expectation. The expectation is set, but actually getting the reps to it's non-negotiable that you do X amount of cold calls. It's non-negotiable that you have X amount of meetings. Like, how do you have any sort of advice that maybe if a CRO is listening, they can kind of take home tomorrow and say, okay, this is what I'm gonna implement to get my reps doing what they need to be doing. Is there anything that you can think
Um,
about?
I shouldn't say I'm doing this because my sales manager is doing this, but
Of course, yeah.
he showed me a very strong correlations between AEs producing the most pipe gen and AE's booking performance. There's a strong correlations, meaning AEs making customer face-to-face meetings, AEs making their own pipeline. They tend to have a higher performance. And
Yeah,
AEs, what AE doesn't want to perform well? What
of
AE
course.
doesn't want to get more commissions? And
Yeah.
the way to get to that high performing, consistently high performance is meeting as many customers as possible and consistently creating their own pipeline.
Mm, yeah. the reps that talk to the most people are usually the ones that end up winning. I think that's
Yeah,
the key term. No, I think that's really useful feedback. I think that's showing that correlation and showing in the data that there's a clear link here, guys. It's like if you want to hit your
yeah,
commissions, these are what the best reps do, and that's
yeah.
the expectation, which is great. And I know I don't think you. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you haven't run like a small team. Maybe you started with a small team at Asana and then you grew it over time, right? In terms of sales team. Are there any, I guess, big differences that you see in terms of kind of running a team of, let's say, 4 to 5 reps versus a team of 50? Like, are there any sort of big transition points, and like how do you manage that transition to scale?
Yeah,
Anything
I
to
should
watch
go
out for?
back to the previous companies in terms of a scaling, because that was a greater scale
Yeah.
in my previous companies. But what I've learned is just adding a salespeople in the organization is not going to scale. Meaning,
Yeah.
you have to have enough business development team. You have to have a strong support team, customer success team. So rather than adding, let's say, 10 AEs, start with 3 or 4 AEs addition first. Then make sure you balance that with your support, customer success, and business development team, because AEs, if you just simply add AEs, you are just hanging them dry. No leads coming in, no support provided. So I just want to make sure, when I grow my team, I always care about, like, okay, what kind of a support functions that I need to build.
Yeah.
So, so to me, I said before, customers in Japan expect, enterprise grade support and
Yeah.
communication and relationship. And AE alone cannot achieve that. You need to have a good support team supporting the AE. So
Yeah.
the only piece of advice that I could give is make sure you have the balance.
Yeah.
Don't just hire a bunch of salespeople and expect, the revenue is going to grow
Yeah.
according to the number of salespeople, because it won't.
Yeah. I've seen that mistake made many times, where there's pressure from the investors or the PE firms to grow the business and achieve the high growth, and the number one thing is like, let's hire 100 reps, and that's
Yeah.
the first thing we do, and it's like there's nothing around it to support it. So yeah, totally agree with you on that point. So we can't end the podcast without talking about a bit about AI, because obviously what we're NXL are doing is we're really
Sure.
helping revenue teams leverage AI to scale revenue. I'm interested to know, as a leader, are you and your team using AI at all across the sales process, and where have you seen it be beneficial, whether that be more
Sure.
revenue, time spent, etc.?
I mentioned about the communication tool, that we use in the company in Asana. Asana has a built-in AI capacity, and all the communication between manager and AE are done on Asana, and AEs don't need to write weekly report. The report is automatically generated on Asana, and I get to see the summary of it generated by AI on Asana. And and I also said sales is a team effort. So they, we have a customer success, marketing, solutions team, support team. They're all in different projects to go through the sales process. So yes, we do use AI functions every day.
Nice. So a lot of that that kind of what used to be quite manual in terms of reps reporting back, all of that is automated via AI, because all the data is being tracked.
Yes, not just data, but their activity reports. Like
Activity communication.
what kind of a customers are we seeing? Like where are we getting stuck? What kind of help do we need?
Yeah, interesting. And are you doing anything around? Do you have any sort of kind of conversational intelligence, like in terms of, let's say, meetings with customers being recorded at all, and then using AI off the back of that? Do you have
Yeah,
anything like
we
that
we
going
we
on?
do, but like I said, majority of our meetings are face to face, so
Yeah,
it's not
fine.
recorded.
Yeah. True. Well, that's probably the right thing, right? All these recording softwares got very big during the point of after COVID. I think when everything went online.
Right.
So things are moving face to face. Amazing. Well, listen, I think that has been really insightful. I'm gonna leave you with one last question, which
Okay.
is, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to a sales leader stepping into Japan, either just stepping into Japan for the first time, or being promoted into a sales leader role,
Sure.
that even that our Western audience can also learn from as well?
Yeah. So when I moved back to Japan, I had a choice to become a sales leader in one company or individual salesperson in the other. I chose to be an individual contributor and salesperson because I've never sold in Japan. And I knew it was going to be a all different game. So I spent first 2 years on the field being a salesperson because I didn't think I could get trust from the field if I never sold a thing here. So my piece of advice is, stay close to the field. Stay close to what's happening on the ground. Go talk to customers yourself. The manager. I don't think manager's job is to receive reports, right? So know what's happening every day on the field with the salespeople is something that I always care about, and that's a piece of advice I can give, and that's more important here in Japan.
Absolutely. Well, I would argue that that is a piece of advice that can be used everywhere,
Yeah,
and really really critical for anyone who's trying to build a high performing sales team. Know what's going on the ground is what I will take away from that, which is great. Ike, thank you so much. Arigato
thank you.
gozaimasu
Arigatou
for
gozaimasu.
all the amazing insight. I look forward to seeing you in Japan, hopefully in the next couple of
Yeah, come
months. So
back.
we've got a few trips planned. Yeah, we've got some
Okay.
exciting opportunities over there. And in terms of if people want to get in touch with you, what we'll do is we'll post your LinkedIn, if that's all right, for
Yeah, that's fine.
underneath the YouTube video. If anyone wants to get in touch with you about Asana or just generally just learn something from you.
Sure.
Appreciate your time, and look forward to catching up soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.